What a finish in Pittsburgh with so much riding on the line. The Steelers trying to lock themselves into a better seed on third down inside 20 ticks. They got the out and up, and Russ can't connect with George Pickens, a connection that went awry a number of times here on Saturday night. Then last gasp, 4th and 12. Pat Freiermuth so solid throughout this one. Drops it. Turnover on down. Since he's going to survive, one asked the question, would they even have gotten to the line? Could they get it spiked? Would the Boz have gotten a swing? We will never know. 19-17, your final with Cincy. Living to see Sunday. Back with the guys here to break it down. And fellas, that was an exciting final few minutes after a sleepy second half there to start. I just want to go through that final sequence. Christian tackled inbounds, sacked, missed on a double move, and then moved over the middle of the field. What'd you see there from Russell Wilson?
The critical mistake was Russell Wilson not getting out of bounds, choosing to turn into a fullback when he's a quarterback. Listen, he's still got some wheels, but what he is not good at is running over defenders. The most important thing is preserving the time. He wasn't able to do it. He made a terrible decision. That really created a lot of difficulty for their offense because it limited them as what they could actually do. Even if Freiermuth catches the ball, so he catches it, he drops it with 11 seconds. He's got room to run. Now maybe it's 3. Now you got 8 seconds for all your big fellas to run down, the kicker to come on the field, and to kick it for the win. And you're still looking at like a 55-yard field goal. So I think the biggest mistake that really put him at the end of the game, the crucial mistake, was not throwing the football out of bounds.
The clock there on first down, and on second down, you retain that final timeout if you can find a way to wriggle out of a sack or at least get the ball out of your hands. Emery, this is why you bring in a guy like Russell Wilson, for the experience in these types of moments. What did you see?
Well, to your point, Joe, about what we watched, and you saw Mike Tomlin call that timeout on the north side of the 2-minute warning, and now they didn't have that extra timeout.
That second timeout.
The second timeout. Yeah. So we saw a failure in situational football by Pittsburgh the last part of the fourth quarter, and they got saved by the muff punt or whatnot, or the punt that hit their opposing player. And so they had a chance to win this game. They had a chance to come back, and just the situational football moments is really what separates the good teams like the Chiefs and what we saw tonight with Pittsburgh. So situational football from the coaching staff trickled over to the players, trickled over to what we saw on the field.
George Pickens' problems with one.
I don't know if we have the time, but we can sit here.
But more importantly, every issue that the Pittsburgh Steelers have had during this 3-game losing streak all came out at the end of the game. Miscommunication. Pickens was open, but he decides to take it deep, and the angle is kind of messed up, and they can't connect with each other. The multiple drops, the big plays that he just couldn't. I mean, everybody's talking to him. The guy spent so much time on the ground, flopping around after drops. It was hard to watch for me.
6 targets, 1 reception, 0 yards for George Pickens, who is supposed to be your big play guy, who is supposed to be the one you turn to. They dial one up there on the second to last play of this game for Pittsburgh, and they cannot connect. Story of the night for quarterback and receivers. It is still a playoff team. If the Chargers beat Vegas, Pittsburgh becomes the 6th seed. They will travel to the Ravens. If the Chargers lose to Vegas, they are the 5 seed. They will travel to Houston. We don't know if we have 2 playoff teams in this matchup. Cincinnati, they check the box. Now they sit and wait. Need a loss by the Broncos, a loss by the Dolphins. Both plausible things when you look at the day. What did you see, Emory, from Cincinnati down the stretch? Because we had a touchdown on the first drive of the game here. The following 9 drives, 3 or nothing.
We saw how important T. Higgins is. Yeah. And that's the question moving forward. How healthy is he going to be with that ankle? Not only if they get into the postseason, but throughout the postseason. But what they have offensively is basically like a basketball team where you have guys that can all score. They can all create their own shots. They got 4 guys that can go out there and win one-on-one, and it puts strain on your opposing defense because you have usually 1 good corner that you can trust to lock down guys. You don't have 4. And they have 4 guys that can legitimately win, 3 receivers and a tight end. And we saw tonight how they were able to utilize Cam Sample as an outlet receiver. And we also saw them get Samaje Perine involved with no Chase Brown. So they got options, they got weapons. And we saw a defense stand up and make plays around the line of scrimmage. And also, yes, George Pickens made it easier for them because he dropped a few. But when you go back to Joe Burrow and what he's done, At one point in the game, he was 5 of 7 for 57 yards and a touchdown versus man coverage. So it doesn't matter if you're playing man or zone, they're eating you up.
So if they do get into the playoffs, there's some obvious issues. Their offensive line is a major issue. Rotating guys in left and right. Their left tackle is dealing with an issue. I mean, I don't know who the left guard was again. Bolson. I mean, holy cow. That poor guy. Yeah. I mean, I felt sorry for him for a while, and there was no way to give him any help. He just was on his back half the time. So, and that's why you like Joe Burrow, because he's so tough. Last week, he got sacked 7 times. He got hit 15. And today, he had to come out of the game because he was constantly being hit and just head first into the turf. So they got to fix that. And they've been sticking the tight ends. At one point in time, they had 3 tight ends in the backfield, and then they put 1 to the hip. But they were going to guarantee that they were going to protect him. But he doesn't like not having all his receivers out in the route. But to your original point, the biggest change, I think, is T. Higgins limits them a little bit without him, and Chase Brown not being in the backfield receiving the football.
Yeah, 1 out of 4 inside the red zone. That's your ball game. Yeah. They could have made this a lot easier for themselves. But when you're going 1 of 4 and Pittsburgh is 2 of 2, that's why this game was close.
Depending what happens in this wide receiver market this offseason, it could be a glimpse of things to come without T. Higgins in Cincinnati. Now, Cincy could be our 7th seed. Miami also could, but it all relies on the Broncos losing to Kansas City. They're 11.5-point favorites in that matchup that'll be filled with backups for KC. But one wonders, Andy Reid with the headset on, it's going to be a ball game there. The other thing that Cincinnati needs is a loss by the Miami Dolphins. They take on the Jets in East Rutherford. Game time temp 37 degrees. They've lost 12 straight, 40 or below. I'm saying it's out there in front of them. But, Christian, when you're given the options of these 3 7 seeds, is Cincinnati your agent of chaos, the team that could actually go there and flip some tables, or do you still see that in the Denver Broncos?
Well, I mean, this is like we're victims of the moment right now. We've been just focusing and just on Cincinnati and how quickly they can score. The Steelers had a great kind of game plan to slow them down, and whether T. Higgins is there or not, I feel like the Denver Broncos can put out a similar product when it comes to minimizing the damage. Now, listen, now nobody minimizes Jamar Chase. Yeah. What do you have, 9 catches for almost 100 yards? So he's going to get his. He had the 1 drop that he probably should have caught, that made the game closer than it should be. But I still feel like Denver, regardless of how badly the things happened last week, I still feel like they would still be the better option.
Yeah. I'm going to roll with Cincinnati because they have the quarterback that has gone through the playoffs, gone through on the road, and won some big games. We saw him go up to Buffalo, and they, blew out the Buffalo Bills in the snow, and we've seen him go into Kansas City and play competitive football. So but for me, it's Cincinnati because I can't trust what Miami's going to do because they're going to have to go somewhere cold. And also, you don't know who's going to be at quarterback. And then you have the young rookie quarterback in Bo Nix that's still sort of figuring things out. Now, he's coming off his best game of his rookie season, so maybe that's a good omen going into the postseason. And their defense, to your point, is really good. They can match up and cause problems, but I just feel like they got Burrow but we're only speaking about one side of the ball for Cincinnati because they really can't stop anybody. We've seen it all throughout the season.
And that will be the task, a snowy meeting in Buffalo likely there, 2 versus 7 for whoever does get that final seed. Cincinnati, they check the box in this instance, but 2 more boxes to be checked to find themselves sneaking in to that 7 seed. Here's a look at some more Steeler numbers. We got more coming here on the steel curtain that has fallen. 4 losses to end the season. It is their longest losing streak to end a season since 1998. Still a playoff team thanks to that hot start, but you're going in flat-footed if you are the Pittsburgh Steelers. Still a playoff team, and for thoughts out of this one, we say hello to the 2-time Super Bowl champ in black and yellow, Bryant McFadden, here to offer his thoughts. Mac, I know you can't be walking away from this one feeling too good about the Steelers. We'll get to the long-term thoughts in just a moment, but this 60 minutes of football felt like there was a game plan there to beat Cincinnati. Where did the execution lack?
Well, I'll say this, looking at the defensive side, first and foremost, Joe, that first drive for Cincy led by Joe Burrow was outstanding. You felt like Joe Burrow was going to have a 3-touchdown day, over 300 yards, maybe close to 500 yards of total offense. When you look at the adjustments Terrell Austin and his staff made that was able to kind of slow things down for Joe Burrow and didn't allow another touchdown the rest of the way. So that's a plus moving forward. But when you look at the offense, Joe, let's keep it real. 2 things for them, Pittsburgh offensively. They lack talent and they lack playmakers. And the one playmaker I think we all would agree and say he is their playmaker, he had a rare off night in George Pickens. They don't have any talent. When you look at some of the other offenses in the National Football League, in the AFC, heck, in the AFC North outside of Cleveland, they have guys on the offensive end you have to respect. The Pittsburgh Steelers, outside of number 14, when he's dialed in, there's no other player on their offense that you really have to pay extra attention to. And that hurts the offense. It hurt them in a game like tonight, where your defense finally bowled their back up and they played good football, gave you the extra possessions you need, made the necessary plays you needed to make. The offense squandered because they don't have playmakers, and that has been the case when they played against the four-game losing streak, all playoff caliber teams, all high-level teams on the offensive end. Unfortunately for Pittsburgh, their offense could not match that.
It got very Freiermuth heavy there in the second half. A great night by Pat, but not the explosivity you're looking for in an offensive attack when you're taking on a team like Cincinnati. This is a Pittsburgh defense that did just hold Burrow under those 3 touchdown passes, a streak that was 8 weeks and counting. So defensively, they hold up their end of the bargain. They're still going to be a tough out for anybody. We'll get to a matchup here in a second, but you're a loser in 4 consecutive. You're limping into the playoffs. How do you get into that building and find a spark? Where does the energy come from in this week of preparation?
I mean, everyone got to look into the mirror and embrace the issue, the wrongs that have surfaced over the last 4 weeks, and find a way to make it right. And this is not the way you want to go into the playoffs, because let's keep it real, Joe. We know they're going into the playoffs, but it feels like the season is over because you lost 4 straight games. 4 straight games. And in that 4-game losing streak, you were sitting atop of your division. You had a 2-game lead on the Baltimore Ravens, and you're playing the worst football of the season in the most important time. That's not the way you want to go into the playoffs. And Joe, I say this week in and week out, either you're thriving or you're surviving. Right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're barely surviving. And if that's the case, come January football, playoff football, you're going to have a short stay.
193 yards of total offense, their fewest. That lowest output since 2021 in a home game for Pittsburgh. The offense has got to figure something out, whether it be George Pickens and his quarterback getting on the same page or finding a secondary target there. Something has to come alive for them to find any success in the postseason. Those 2 possible matchups, a trip to Houston or a trip to Baltimore. I think we know what the likely answer is if you pulled that room, but you do have that edge over Baltimore mentally at times. That trend was bucked, obviously, just weeks ago, but it's a matchup you know. Do you want to get into the division, or would you rather take that trip to Houston? Vegas is saying it's a 6-point difference between those 2 opportunities.
Well, give me the destination where you would be the favorite. And that's the Houston Texans, right? The line, I think you said Pittsburgh, if they were to play the Houston Texans, they would be a 1-point favorite. Give me that opportunity. And the reason why I say that, number one, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been playing bad. But when you look at the other teams that will be in the playoffs that we know right now today, the Houston Texans probably have been playing worse. So give me that matchup. Then looking at the issues for Houston on the offensive end, they haven't been able to protect their quarterback in C.J. Stroud. So give me T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig playing against that offensive line, because I think the pressure could actually help the offense in terms of Russell Wilson and his castmates to be able to get the necessary possessions to score points. So if we've had this discussion weeks ago, Joe, but I'm recanting my statements from weeks ago based on how bad the Pittsburgh Steelers have been playing. Give me Houston. I know weeks ago I said if we can get Baltimore at home in Acrisure Stadium, I'll take the Ravens, but no, I recant. I want the Houston Texans if you're asking me.
I had you there, Mac. I wasn't gonna out the previous conversation, and I was gonna support you. You did say at home. You did not say at Baltimore. If you're saying at Baltimore or at Houston, the 2 opportunities right now, you take that Houston one and run with it. You said it, a 1.5-point favorite there. More likely, a 7.5-point dog at Baltimore. Bryant, McFadden, we appreciate your thoughts as always. We'll see you soon, pal.